Inshallah, we'll have right now a session for questions and answers. There are lots of questions. Some are repeated. But before that, I noticed that as I'm looking at all of you, that mashallah, we have Orlando, we have Miami, we have ICBR Boca Raton, we have Wichita Masjid. I see the imams, the board members. I see Atlanta, Georgia, St. Louis, the Imam of St. Louis, Dr. Ali Bajigni, and many others. Maybe one of the assignments that I would do in Iowa, I'm from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, is to have maybe a yearbook where you produce a maybe 10-15 minutes documentary, or what does it mean, or how does it, what do you expect if you happen to come and visit our masjid, or this is our masjid for 2018. These are the activities and everything we have done, and I promise that it would be excellent, not only on the educational level, but also for our youth to see the progress that many masajid are trying to do, making their masjid a very comprehensive, inclusive place, safe place, as Rami was saying, for people to come and enjoy and practice. Before we go to the questions and answers, I wanted to tell you something that I noticed. I visited in about 4 months period, almost 10,000 miles on a motorcycle. I visited close to 100 plus masjid, and in many of those masajid, I was actually part of the activity is to bring a motorcycle club members, non-Muslims, with their culture, tattoos and everything, to the masjid, to stay in the masjid for an hour or overnight, observe even qiyam, and watch the community coming at 5 o'clock in the morning to pray tahajjud and then pray fajr, interacting with the youth. The thing I noticed the most, that the time when the foreigners, non-Muslims in the masjid board / imam kind of get in hibernation mood, where we need to, it's like this is not the norm. And I'm kind of thinking that hopefully, inshallah, one day the masjid will not only serve the Muslim community, it will be the center of our community at large, where the masjid is the place for every American, every neighbor to feel safe, to feel welcome, to feel there is something in that place for him or for her to benefit. So with that, inshallah, let's move to the questions and answers. And I'm suggesting, since we have too many questions and answers to give, probably 2 to 3 minutes to each one, address her or his questions the way they feel like it, inshallah. But I would ask you to come here, since the camera, phone, or microphone is here, inshallah. So let's start with Sister or Dr. Sarrah.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a couple repeated questions, and unfortunately I'm not going to get to all of them, so I chose a few. The first one I wanted to address, if campus Muslim student groups like the MSA can be seen as a sort of microcosm of the larger masjid community, in what ways can we apply some of the solutions from ISPU research in identical problems among Muslim students, specifically being inclusive and getting more Muslims involved other than Arab and South Asian? There were a number of questions about ethnic groups. So this one too, how can we eliminate the ethnic differences in groups in our mosques? I had like 3 more like that. So I want to do a 2-part answer. One, even though this project was tackling masjids and making them more inclusive, we did primarily look at it from the issue of women, converts, and young adults. We did not tackle the issue of race in our community, and unfortunately it's a huge issue. Racism within the community is a really big issue. I want to put a plug out for Muslim ARC, another nonprofit organization that specifically does anti-racist, it's Muslim Anti-Racist Collaborative is the full name, Muslim ARC, and they do anti-racism trainings and workshops across the country. So you can actually have them come out to your city, your community, and do these trainings, but then they also have a ton of resources online. And really, they are solely dedicated to tackling this issue, not just in masajid or MSAs, but in our community. I would highly recommend Muslim ARC. But I want to share a data point and a story about how a masjid in Lexington, Kentucky actually tackled their inter-ethnic issues. So Dr. Ihsan Begbi is actually the principal investigator of our project, and also I like to call him the father of American mosque studies because he's been studying American masjids for 20 years now. In his community in Lexington, Kentucky, Masjid Bilal, the main masjid there, was primarily an African-American masjid to begin with. And then when immigrant groups were coming in, mostly through college, so immigrating for college and then settling, the community grew, and they immediately were noticing some tensions, right? So one thing he said when I was speaking to him, and Dr. Begbi is a convert and African-American himself, which a lot of people don't realize, one thing they did was they had a food competition. They literally would have different segments of the community cook for the rest of the community. So they had like Libyan food night, my favorite, Somali food night, African-American food night, and they would have these different like potlucks for the whole community where different segments of them would cook for everyone. And it was a chance to get to know people, to celebrate the culture, and to create a space where they were being very intentional of saying, this is not going to be a black masjid, this is not going to be a Egyptian masjid, this is not going to be Indian masjid. Like, this is a masjid for all of us, and we're going to celebrate all of your cultures. And if you're going to be a part of this masjid, you don't have to hide part of who you are. We will celebrate that, but also doesn't mean you can put that ahead of somebody else. And then research actually shows that the more you know someone, so the less prejudice and discrimination you'll have towards that person. So that's one example of how you can actually get to know each other. But for the deep down heavy work, I definitely recommend Muslim ARC. The other question that I wanted to tackle, how do we convince our masjid leadership to take ISPU recommendations into consideration if there's no official forum for members to engage? And then how can you actually create an official forum? I want to get real here and say, in our focus groups across the country, we spend time talking to both Muslim leaders and members, and there is a big kind of like concrete divider between the two, right? Members over here really are not realizing what leaders are doing. Leaders over here are not always recognizing the needs of the people. But I will say to the non-leaders, all the individuals in the room, the onus is on us to show up and actually make our voices heard. You would be surprised, actually, I would almost bet money on the fact that there is a way to get in touch with your masjid leadership, but you have to figure out what that is. Is it attending the general body meeting? Is it attending town halls? Is it even just the website or the call here, email here, like that info@yourmasjid.org? There is most likely a way, but what we're finding actually is that Muslims who are having a negative experience are more likely to just kind of put their hands up and walk away than to actually show up at the meetings, become that volunteer, show up at that Sunday morning general body meeting, wait your turn to say your 3-minute spiel. There is most likely a way for you. It's not easy and it takes a lot of time, but really the only way we're going to change it is if you show up and we show up collectively.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. A few questions on fitna. And actually, fitna in the mosques is something that happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So we have a sunnah as well in how to deal with the fitna. If you refer to the tafasir in the ayah, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْنَا الْمُسْتَقْدِمِينَ مِنْكُمْ وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْنَا الْمُسْتَأْخِرِينَ, you will find a number of stories narrated in the sunnah that some of the men in the back lines of men used to look back while doing ruku' to, look and gaze at a particular woman in the mosque. It is not narrated that the Prophet ﷺ changed the design because of that, and it is not narrated that he blamed the woman who was praying, who was, they said, very beautiful, but he actually blamed the men and advised the men who are causing the fitna, not the women who are causing the fitna. And of course, if anybody is coming to the mosque dressed inappropriately or acting inappropriately, man or woman, they should be advised. And if they insist, they should be banned from coming in with an appropriate attire or appropriate man or woman for that matter. But the issue of fitna is actually something that really men cause rather than women. So many questions on how can we change the status quo. And I think that you have to put enough pressure for the reality to change. The reality doesn't change by sweet talk. I was giving a lecture in South Africa a few months ago, and in Durban, women are not allowed in the mosque. Some of my female students there insisted on entering the mosque, and the guys prevented them. They went and gathered the female professors who were Muslim and a number of girls, and they demonstrated in front of the mosque, and they pushed their way into the mosque to sit and listen to the lecture. I don't think there is any solution that is less than that. So there are legal solutions, there are other solutions. However, you can bring your right according to what is right in Islam, and not to transgress these rights. I advise you to take these means, because the powerful do not give the less powerful anything. This is the reality of politics. Women teachers, yes, women are not, there is nothing in the Sunnah where women gave khutbah, so women are not supposed to lead prayers in the mosque. I have a little book on the mosques I talked about. I dealt with this issue in details. So we follow the example of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We did not have in the Sunnah a woman leader of prayers or a woman who gave a khutbah. We have a leader of prayers who was a woman and men behind, and the hadith is disputed anyway, but in the mosque of her home, not in the Masjid al-Jami', not in the big mosque. So, but there is evidence of women teaching in the mosque and talking in the mosque and dealing. So if you have a lecturer who is a woman who sits in the mosque and gives a lecture, there is nothing wrong about this. There is no evidence for any banning of something like that. And yes, it is a bid'ah to mix both genders in the lines. It is a bid'ah to change the mosque design as the Prophet ﷺ changed. So women being in the mosque doesn't mean that we have men and women in the same lines, because that is too close of a distance. And in Islam, we have ethics for men and women dealings. There is a reason behind that. So this doesn't mean that we open everything and the mosque becomes a place that is against the Islamic morals. To beautify the mosque, yes, but without going too extravagant. Sometimes mosques spend too much on walls and domes. And as my brother said, and I really admire his contribution, it is more important to spend on human capital rather than to spend on marbles and chandeliers. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Brother Rami.
So really, the one question that was very pertinent to what I was talking about was how do we change the irrelevant cultural, how do we change the culture that it's maybe irrelevant or cultural mindset, particularly amongst the leadership and the board. You know, I've had, alhamdulillah, a privilege and you know, again, working within masajid and centers, whether it's the centers that you know, I was based out of or other centers. And really, I think really at the end of the day, at the core root of the heart of most of our leadership, yes, we have a lot of problems, there are challenges for sure, but I think everybody wants good. I think everybody has a good intention for the most part. People really want things to happen. So I really believe that there needs to be a sincere, clear, direct feedback to leadership. Usually in mosques leadership, you know, it's the person that's always giving out or volunteering, always giving out food, always helping out, this, that, or the other, and then we vote them into a board leadership. And obviously, from a management perspective, it's a flawed system. But at the end of the day, I think people want, you know, they really want that impact on people's lives. So for me, when it comes to changing the culture, I really believe that it's an effort of everyone. It's an effort of parents and youth. It's an effort of everybody. I always have the challenge of youth. You know, youth do the masjid volunteer thing as quick as they flip between Netflix shows. Like it's, you know, they'll do it for a couple of weeks. Okay, next show, right? Now it's very quick, bouncing around different masajid, different organizations. And I always tell them, look, if you don't commit, if you don't understand, like you have to commit to this project in order to see its fruits and success. It doesn't happen overnight. So we really need that commitment from parents, from youth. When they deal with hardships, it's okay, don't leave. You know, challenges of adults, we tell the adults, it's okay, don't leave. We had an incident last week. We play soccer in our center a lot. The kids play soccer a lot. A brother was praying. I think the ball hit him. He was very frustrated. And when he walked out, he slammed the door and it shattered. The glass shattered. The door collapsed completely. So the first thing that we did, I was there, our executive director, Brother Marwan, was there. We went and told him, don't worry about it, it's okay, it's all right. Don't worry. He's like, I'm not gonna come to the university. We're like, look, listen, it's all right. Everything's gonna be okay. We want you to come back. And we kind of worked it out with him. So a lot of times, again, we have to be able to, not run away from every problem. That requires resilience, grit, I don't know what we call it. Definitely our psyche is what's very important here. That we continue to try, that we continue to give nasiha, that we don't give up. In ethics, morals, values, in proper ways, in good ways, those are always more effective than yelling, screaming. But we have to we have to give that clarity, especially youth. And I always encourage our youth to speak to the adults, to spend time with the adults, to speak to our board. If they come to me with a problem, if it's administrative, I have them go speak to the adult. Learn to build that relationship so that it's not that somebody's not always taking care of the problem for us. And I believe our masajid and our centers and our imams and our leadership need to adopt that culture of transparency and trust and the ability for people to communicate. If not, keep going, keep doing it, inshallah ta'ala, in the best of ways, bi'idhnillah, and that's hopefully what's beneficial.
Well, Jazakumullah khairan. I just wanted to say two things. Number one, I hope nobody's frustrated. I hope nobody happened to be consciously or unconsciously reflecting back home about our masjid and, oh my God, I wish I need to move to Brother Rami's masjid or something like. This is the progress where we hope one day when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls you as his neighbor. There is hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the day of judgment, the hadith for Abi Hurairah radiyallahu an, صححه الألباني في سلسلة الصحاح وصحيح الترغيب, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the day of judgment, يقول الله عز وجل أين جيراني أين جيراني, where are my neighbors, where are my neighbors? Imagine. So فتقول الملائكة, the angels gonna say, oh, glory be to you, O Allah. Who are those whom you call neighbors? فيقول الله عز وجل أين عمار المساجد? Where are those who used to lead the Sunday school and the youth programs and build the masajid and stay in the masjid overnight for the youth overnight, or try to welcome make the masjid the best place for the community to come and interact and develop the right human being that will be leading our community and our country one day, inshallah, that was developed in this masjid, in this small masjid. So keep pushing, keep progressing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching over your actions. And finally, keep the positive attitude. You're not in the fight with the board, you're not in the fight with the masjid, you're in the fight with the shaitan. But those are your brothers, those are your sisters. You cannot make it by yourself. If you are really sincere to make it to Jannah, if you're really sincere, wish one day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept your legacy, you have to make it with them, not by yourself. Because the shaitan and the wolf eat the single sheep. And if the shaitan ever assign you to single yourself out or encapsulate yourself or say, I would never visit the 9th Street Masjid, and then this is the time that you realize that you have an issue. You need to talk to someone, you need to come back, you need to bring the smile and the positive attitude, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of us. I would like to thank our speakers and hope inshallah next year we'll have more of these sessions and more time for you to discuss it with us as well. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah.